Hey, Nashville. Welcome to the NFM Podcast. Tala Shatara here hanging out with Collin. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. We are hanging out today also with Rikki Harris, who's with Tennessee Voices. We're in the OptimizeU studio, and today's sponsors are OptimizeU, naturally, Nutrition Factory, and the U.S. Navy. So first and foremost, Rikki, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm really excited about this conversation.
Yeah. Have you done podcasts before?
I have. They're one of my favorite things.
Oh, good.
It's such a nice way to just talk about important things without super formal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I love it.
We all can be ourselves and kind of just loosen up. And that's what we're going to do.
Let's do it.
Collin, last time we saw you on this couch, you were a guest. How does it feel to be on the guest side versus the host side?
The couch is bigger on the guest side. A little more room.
Well, can we get him to move? We'll just move you over at the commercial break. But no, I'm excited to start, and of course, we got to do our basket of debate. That's why we're all here, right? So, Collin, if you want to grab and pass, that would be amazing.
I'm scared a little bit.
Yeah, Collin, you want to go first? I know you should be.
Okay, I'm
You
not
should
going
be
to read it
scared.
yet.
They're very hard. No. Let's see.
This is so much better. We've improved. Would you rather have spaghetti for hair or maple syrup for sweat?
Oh.
Spaghetti for hair. What?
I'm bald, so I'm going to go with maple syrup for sweat.
Oh my gosh. Okay, good. That's, I mean, good perspective. What do you think?
Oh, this one's hard because I have a love-hate relationship with my hair. So I think I'm going to go spaghetti for hair.
Nice, change it
And I don't
up.
have to worry about it.
Me too.
It
Me
is.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you just get hungry, you just
nibble a little.
nibble. Nibble.
Sounds
Little
like a
nibble
real-
never hurt
But
nobody.
the same is true with the sweat, though. I mean,
You're a walking
Just
condiment.
saying.
Yeah, literally
You could
just,
get a
you
little-
know, just
Yeah.
taste
Oh,
a
well.
little. Okay, interesting. See, maple syrup in that capacity is just a little too much for me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to go with the spaghetti. All right. Rikki,
Okay,
your
I'm
turn.
Would you rather teleport anywhere instantly but throw up every time, or fly everywhere slowly but gracefully? This one's so easy for me.
Is it the flying?
I'm going to fly slowly but gracefully.
Yeah, 'cause,
because
like,
two
who-
things I hate is flying and throwing up. So period, hands down.
Yeah,
is
actually, me
easy.
too. I'm going to
Yeah.
go exactly with your answer. Yeah, identical.
Yeah, flying's cool.
Flying's
Well, is
cool.
it like super slow?
I mean, it's just
Slowly.
Yeah, I think I'll fly.
Yeah.
Throwing up
Yeah,
sucks.
that one's easy.
slow. Throwing up sucks, but I'm like, man, imagine the weight you'd lose. No, I'm just kidding.
The hacks.
I'm like, imagine the weight you'd lose. No, I'm just kidding. All right, my turn. Let's do it. Should you make your bed every morning? And what a great question, Ezra. Honestly, you should. Do we always? No. Let's be honest. Like, I don't do it every time, but I know that it is like something that you should. And a lot of very influential and successful people always say that as like a huge tip that they give you is to like make your bed. It starts your day off right. It puts your, it gives you stable routine. I don't know. That's my take. What do you think?
Okay. Controversial but true for me. I don't understand if there is science behind make your bed thing, show it to me and debate, but I have no reason to make the bed. None at all. I mean, up and busy and go, and there's much better things to do than waste time making a bed. You're just going to get right back in there.
No, she's right. There really is
No
no
one goes in my
reason
bedroom.
to do it.
No one sees it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You
See
are
how much
right.
further off you'd be in life if you made your bed.
What do you mean?
I'm just kidding.
She's doing so good already.
I'm team no make the bed.
I'm team I know I should, and I'm
It's the
team no
worst.
make the bed.
I'm not
But
going
we
to feel
do.
guilty about it.
No,
I'm
I
just
don't even think
not.
about it.
Me either.
And
Sorry,
honestly,
Jess.
I think a lot of people have declined doing that because a lot of people work from home and they like, they just jump right into. Some people even work from their bed. You know what I mean? If you
Yeah.
work from home, so it's like, why am I making this?
I'm just out the door. Like I wake up the last second possible. I'm like, okay, we have to go. That's never going to happen.
That's hilarious, Ezra. A great question. Let's round of applause for Ezra.
Yeah, those were good.
Much better.
That
much
was a
better.
really
And creative.
good question. Very creative.
You thought those up? Okay.
Don't ask that. We know ChatGPT had a lot to do with this. But we are still very happy. And Rikki, it's exciting to have you. I was taking a look at your bio. Do you need a second? Did you take a look at her bio?
No, put him on the spot.
You did. No, it's okay. If he needs a moment, we'll give him the moment. I want to make sure, because I think what you do is amazing. Mental health is so important. But let's talk about really where it all started. I asked you if you were from Nashville, and you were like, no. And I'm like, no one is. Are you from Nashville?
I mean, I grew up here, but not born here.
Exactly. It's like everyone's story, really. Yeah. What was Nashville without all of us?
Nothing.
I know.
One street. I'm glad we could fix it for him. But let's talk a little bit about, obviously, just really how you got into your trade. What inspired it all?
So the why for me is pretty simple. At 7 years old, a little kid trying to understand the world, and my grandfather died by suicide, and no one explained it to me. And I went about my next few years trying to unpack the whole thing, and it didn't make sense. And
how old were you?
I was 7, okay. And they didn't tell me right away. It was just sudden, really sudden. Grandpa passed away. And I knew there was a lot going on there because he lived separate from my grandmother, even though they were married. I knew that my mom had a strained relationship, really didn't understand. And I got really curious. Not long after, my oldest brother had some struggles with mental health. It was all handled very quietly within the family. I, again, had no clue what was happening, and my curiosity was just on overdrive around understanding what was happening. And when I got old enough to really understand, and then understand my family story and the context of it all, I think for me it was just this crazy curiosity to deeper understand how this impacts people, how it happens, where it comes from, how it impacts a family unit, and then what help is available. So that's my why. That's where it all started.
Wow. I have to say, first and foremost, I'm sorry for your loss on that. And I think that, losing a family member, especially in that way, I can't imagine that you just go on about your life as if it's just, a normal death. And a lot of, grandparents die from old age and certain things. This was so much more different. What were some of the circumstances that you feel like led him to do something like that?
Yeah. So as I got older and my mom was more willing to kind of share, it took a long time. It was really understanding his life as a younger person, the traumas of his life, the issues that he had been faced with and struggled with, and then how that impacted his ability to be a father, to be a husband. And truly, at the end of the day, it was completely unsupported, completely untreated trauma that led to the circumstances that created not only his own death, but then as a result, really a lot of pain and trauma for the people around him and close to him. And it's heartbreaking because that's not a person's intent, to be a bad father or to be a bad husband or to want to be so miserable that you would rather die. That's no one's desire. And so for me, it was just learning a little bit more about how the things in his life and the journey he had been on really led him down a road where he never got help. And that became my interest in my career, is just how then do we provide people with help so they don't end up here.
Wow. Collin, I can imagine you have questions.
Yeah, how did that, it's such a young age. Like, how did that shape your kind of just like growth trajectory, like as you got older and like looked at like your family as a whole and whatnot? And I think you mentioned something with your brother.
Yeah. My brother started showing some signs in his young age of just things with his mental health, but it really kind of started with some learning disorder stuff and then some troubles at school. And my mom ended up pulling him out and homeschooling him and trying to help kind of pull this thing together and support him. And then as he got closer to adulthood, he was then diagnosed later with bipolar disorder around the age of 17. And we knew nothing about bipolar disorder or any kind of mental health disorder, to be honest. It was dating myself, but it was the 90s. So there wasn't just a lot of information to consume in sort of public, forum. So it was that, but admittedly, I'm a really nerdy kid. I sort of came into this world in a unique way, and I think it created this sort of, I'll say, probably spiritually charged desire in me to help others. And I was born dead. I was not supposed to live. I was completely blue when I was born.
Wow.
And my doctor was not expecting me to live. So the fact that I did, and they were able to get me to start breathing again, ended up becoming a conversation about how this would impact my brain, that I would be intellectually and developmentally delayed. There were a lot of conversations with my parents in my first years about how this, lack of oxygen to my brain was too long, and this was going to be an impact on my life forever. And my parents were, this is Rikki's story, not a Tennessee Voices story. My parents were very religious, spiritual Christians, and they were just like, okay, we hear what you're saying about how she's going to be or how this is going to impact her physically and intellectually, but we just don't agree that that's how it has to be. And so they just acted as if that wasn't the case. And my mom started teaching me when I was like 1 and 2 how to talk and how to memorize. And so I started memorizing books of the Bible and verses and presidents and all this. So when I say I'm a nerd, it's probably my mom's fault, because she was just like acting as if not only she needed to help me overcome some kind of delay, but that there wasn't even a delay there, that we were just going to move ahead and actually try to optimize all the opportunities. So I was really tuned in, like spiritually tuned in, intellectually tuned in to everything that was going on around me. And I think it just sort of naturally came as a result of the impact of my life of knowing, but not consciously knowing, but subconsciously knowing that I almost didn't live. And so I needed to be super dialed in. So I was always curious, and I was just like, hey, this is how I'm going to spend my life, is trying to help people that had a situation just like we did, and never wanting that to be someone else's story.
Do people, because people said this to my parents when I was younger, but were you like an old soul trapped in a younger body?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel like when you're younger and you're curious like that, you're more in tune and you're more aware. Have you ever seen like a newborn baby just like staring at you and you're like, I feel like they have thoughts of like me, and they're dissecting me right now and they're thinking about me. And it's like, how does a newborn baby do that? But there are like newborn babies like will literally stare at you, and you know that they're very aware. Yeah. And I was the same way.
Were you?
Yes. So I very much understood what you were saying with just, I was very dialed in. I was very aware, even being at a young age and being very curious. Naturally, I went into journalism. But I think for me, it's very interesting. You said a lot of things, but in terms of mental health, it's such a broad thing to go into. What would you say is your specialty in mental health?
That's hard, because as time goes on, this thing is really growing. But I will say, for me, for the longest part of my career, it was children's mental health. And really, that was never my intention. When I was working on my master's degree, and even when I was working through my doctorate, which I have all but my dissertation story if we get to it later.
Let's do it.
But I literally told my professors, I will do anything. I will see any client, because we had to practice while we were working on our doctorate. But I don't want to see children. I can't do that. And my professor was like, you just said the wrong thing. You're seeing at least one before you finish your program. And I dreaded it. Oh my gosh, I dreaded it. And they called
too hard.
I don't know what it was for me. It was like it's too complex. It's too hard to understand. I in my head, I had, my brother's diagnosis sort of came around 17, 18, and then as an adult. So I was like, I'm going to unpack this whole adult thing. And I don't know, it just felt natural. And my professor called and said, okay, we have the one referral that you're going to see. It's a little girl. She's 4 years old, and she actually had suffered trauma from sexual abuse. Jeez. And I was like,
man, well, why don't throw you in the deep end,
do
Rikki?
this. Yeah, I was mad. I was sad. I was miserable. I was like, I don't want to do this. It felt like facing a giant. I was so opposed, but I wasn't in charge. So I think that little girl, I can see her right now, I can see her face, changed the trajectory of my career, because then I completely understood the earlier that you work on these things, the more you can prevent that adulthood long-term issue.
Was there like a moment when you were worried? Like, did you see her just at one time, or did you continue to work with her for a minute?
No, I did see her for probably 7-8 sessions.
And was it like right away you were like, okay, I actually like want to dive down this thing, or did it take a couple?
It took a couple, because I was so nervous as a clinician new to working with children that those first few sessions I felt so discombobulated around what we were doing. And I was trying to learn play therapy, and I was not, okay, I have kids. I have 2 daughters, and they're teenagers. But when they were younger, I was that mom that was like, oh gosh, we have to play Barbies again. You know, it was like I didn't really enjoy it. I really didn't.
Get ready, Collin.
Yeah, get ready, because they really like it when dads play. But I was just dreading that whole part. I think I was so deep intellectually that it was hard for me to go to basic, like play therapy, basic levels with kids. And then after I got my wits about me in the first 2-3 sessions, I realized the impact and the wide open, like my eyes just became wide open around, we're sitting there playing and she's literally like revealing her entire story. And I was just like, oh my gosh. I could not have sat across from a 4-year-old and said, now tell me what has happened. And they would be able to verbalize it. But here we are with little toys. Mm-hmm. And I think it was just so overwhelming for me to recognize that there are ways to do this with children that would prevent her from having to deal with this trauma for the next 10 years of her life before she ever gets treatment, or maybe 14 years as an adult, right? Yeah. She would carry this burden without treatment if we didn't do something now. And I think that's when I just did a 180 and said, oh my gosh, we have to help when trauma actually occurs, not wait till they're adults and can process it in talk therapy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you're doing that, like talking to him, I imagine you kind of stay neutral as a describer. Like how, like that has to be insanely hard.
Oh, it's very hard. You have to be super careful about not leading anyone, not suggesting anything. I mean, you're under a lot of obligation to do it correctly. That's why I think evidence-based treatments are so important. So utilizing treatment and learning as a therapist to do things that are based in evidence, because you can really go off path if you get too involved in someone's story and you're not, following the rules.
Absolutely. I'm sure that there is definitely a standard of procedure in these kinds of things. And I can imagine with this 4-year-old girl, which was even like, did you have to report back to a court or anything like that?
So I don't recall all the details, but I believe court was already involved, that this was treatment that was suggested as a result of all the involvement in reporting the issues that had occurred.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I can't imagine anyone, speaking of myself, who just struggles with their own mental health. Like, I can definitely testify that it can start at such a young age. Mm-hmm. And so for you to recognize that we're going to stop this pattern, we're going to, hey, the more child psychologists there are out there, maybe the less that we need for adult psychologists out there, because we're really nipping things in the butt. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, there are so many circumstances. Let's talk about Tennessee Voices and the work you do in that.
Yeah. So after finishing and realizing children's mental health really was for me where it was going to start, which was totally not what I had planned. I worked in Texas for a long time and really started to understand children's mental health and how systems can all work together to sort of support children, education, even like at-risk child protective services, juvenile justice. Even when kids get involved in these systems, there is a benefit to coordinating within those systems. So I had learned and been trained in this particular modality or philosophy called system of care and how we work with children. So when we decided to move to Tennessee, I looked for an organization that was committed to those principles, and that was Tennessee Voices. And they really were the only one in the state at the time. When I was doing my research, that believed in this philosophy of care, at least from a standpoint of advocating for it and really promoting it publicly. So I called up the executive director and told her, hey, I'm coming here from Texas. I know you don't know me, but I want to be here. I want to work for this organization. And she found a job for me, and I was there for 3 years. And then she announced her retirement, and I was hired as the CEO. Wow. So that was about 11 years ago, 12 years ago, something like that.
Such a really cool success story, honestly. What year was this?
I started in 2011 and was the CEO in 2014.
Wow.
Nice.
What are the different services that Tennessee Voices provides for someone that's listening that, need help?
Yeah. So for people who don't have insurance, maybe they have TennCare or they can't afford the insurance coverage they have, we have opportunities for everything from pregnant mamas to people who need in-home, in very, long-term 24/7 care. So we have services for children and families. We have outpatient therapy and psychological services, med management, in-home services. I mean, there's so much to offer, but the point is, if you're struggling with your mental health, it doesn't matter what age you are, and you're on TennCare, you have no way to pay for care, we can help you. We have something to help you. Now, we go all the way up to adulthood, where we have some people who live in houses with us, and we care for them 24/7 in the supported housing environment. And these are severely, persistently mentally ill people who have been in hospitals or lived in institutions but are competent to live in community. They just don't have support in the community. So we act as that support system. They live with us in houses all around Tennessee, in facilities, and receive care. And it's really rewarding. We have such an incredible team who's working with them. But all the way back to pregnant moms, we have a whole team dedicated to working with young children and new moms to make sure we get off on the right foot.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the philosophy, like what differs in the philosophy that you guys do over there to other ones? Because I'm sure it's like training. There's like different like schools of thought and whatnot. So like what is it outside the norm, or is like what is that philosophy?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a couple of nuances. The first is we believe in collaboration in the work that we do. So we don't think that we can fix everyone's problems. We don't think it's a one-size-fits-all issue, and we think everybody has different needs. So our goal is to not only serve you through the services we have to offer, but figure out what other services you need. That could range everything from food insecurity to resources for housing. I mean, whatever it is, we've got to have partners to help connect all those dots. So system of care is really based on that, what we call a wraparound model, meaning who else needs to be part of this team to get you where you need and want to go. And sometimes that's more than just us. So we have to have lots of friends and partners. So that's the first thing, is it's a no competition kind of organization. We need friends and partners, and we believe in working with other people. And then the other part of it is peer support. So we really believe in peer support, whether that's adult peer support or family peer support. Having someone who has experienced the issues that a person represents or presents with is so powerful in helping them overcome them, because it is almost like a level set. We're not a professional. We do have doctors, nurses, and therapists, but we aren't just clinicians and professionals telling you how you need to change your life to get better. We are a group of people who have lived and experienced things that, a person presenting may have lived and experienced. So there's more of a partnership in the journey to recovery and an understanding around that versus just, do these things and you'll be better, but really understanding the nuances in recovery and the process of treatment is pretty unique to Tennessee Voices.
Yeah. We have so much to uncover with Rikki, as you can imagine, because it's a very, it's a heavier kind of conversation, but very much needed. And I know it's going to be helping so many. So when we come back, we will have more of that. Here is a little word from some of our sponsors.
At OptimizeU, we believe that normal is not optimal. Whether you've been dabbling in hormones or this is your first time and you want to know where to get started, we make the hormone optimization process very simple. Simply get started with comprehensive labs, and our providers will take it from there with you to review where you are right now and where you want to be to ultimately help you achieve your health and performance-related goals. So from our expertise in hormones, peptides, all the way to recovery services, we want you feeling at your optimized best so that you ultimately feel better physically, mentally, and sexually. Just like hormones play a significant role in the overall optimization of your health, so do recovery services help your body on a cellular level. From our sensory lounge to our infrared sauna, full body red light, full body cryotherapy, cold plunge, we have a wide range of performance recovery services just for you.
Hey, Nashville, welcome back to the NFM Podcast. Tala here with Collin, and we're hanging out with Rikki Harris with Tennessee Voices. We're learning all about, how you got started. Your story is just amazing in the sense that it is very unique, and I'm really glad to hear that your circumstances have led you into the career that you have today. It's very passion filled and it's very purpose filled, and I think we've talked about like a divine intervention of that actually being led to why you do what you do. So being with Tennessee Voices, you're constantly surrounded by people who have needs physically, mentally, but mostly mentally. Take me through, and I asked you this on commercial break, is there a common denominator that you see where you're like, there's an epidemic, like there is something that's causing pretty much everyone to feel a certain way mentally that causes people to choose Tennessee Voices? I would say for us, what we have learned is a common denominator is adverse childhood experiences. So a lot of the people that present for care, we use the Adverse Childhood Experiences Assessment or Screening Tool, which is about 10 items on the tool that really go through things you might have experienced in your childhood. And most people have a fairly significant score who present for treatment. These are things like parent's divorce, a parent who has a drug-related problem, a parent who's incarcerated, death of a parent or someone who cared for you, abuse, obviously, of all types. So these are the questions in the Adverse Childhood Experiences Screener. That, to me, is the area where we would get the most bang for our buck as a society, is to reduce childhood trauma, bad childhood experiences. And those, I think, can be mitigated through strengthening the family. The family really has to be strengthened. Parents have to be educated on good parenting practices. We have to figure out how to protect children from having these experiences. But even when they do, there is a way to build resilience so that those experiences can be had and still a person be able to survive those experiences and not become so deep into those experiences they struggle with their mental health. I just think we should start by trying to mitigate the adverse childhood experience first. Absolutely. Which calls into even just your own story and how it all starts at such a young age for everybody. Mm-hmm. Right.
Is there like a characteristic that the people that do get past that easier than others have that they don't? Like, what would that be? Like, or is it just kind of a toss-up and there's not really one? Because you know how like some people just aren't fazed by it, or they are a little, and then they just kind of take it as, that's going to be like a driver as opposed to a limiter for me?
There are some protective factors. So there are things that are in common about people who are able to overcome some of those things and be more resilient. Those are definitely around the environment in which you're raised. So warm, nurturing, loving environment. It doesn't mean no discipline. It doesn't mean, that you aren't taught how to do difficult things. It just means that you have safe space at home. You feel like you have people who love and care about you and support you. And as a young child, that's pretty basic to being able to be resilient when you're older. The other thing I think is having sort of a shared family value. So I really believe, and this is both good in terms of like my opinion, but it's also backed by science, that a household who has shared values, whether that's beliefs, spiritual beliefs, whatever, that there is a strength in that you as a family unit have guiding principles and values that you share as a family and you kind of hold each other to. The same would be true in an organization or a business. where you would say, well, these are our shared values. These are the principles we live by. We're going to hold each other accountable to these things. And that goes both ways for the person in the authority and the person, under care, right? Same is true in family. So those things sort of strengthen a family and make a person more resilient to those adverse experiences in the long run. And then I think there are people who are just born with sheer will. Just the will to overcome the worst of circumstances. I've seen these people who didn't have support, who had slivers of hope, and I don't know except to say oftentimes the people I've met in that situation have a deeply held spiritual belief about their purpose and why they're on this earth.
It's unexplainable.
Yeah.
Collin, that's such a good question because you're right. You could have two people that have gone through the same thing and one person sees it as used, what was the word you used? It was amazing. As a driver. A motivated driver.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then others would see it as an obstacle. I think that is really intuitive. And it goes, everything from what this conversation is telling us is it always goes back to our home life.
Mm-hmm.
So would you say we are more nature versus nurture?
Oh gosh,
I know,
the scientific argument is always it's both. I think it's both. That's the obvious, but I don't know. Nurture's pretty significant.
It is,
and I think the impact of really great upbringing can go incredibly far
Absolutely.
for a person and their wellness overall.
Absolutely. We need to advocate for children and their home environment so much. I have a friend who's a teacher and she'll tell me about students that act out and she'll just look at me and she'll say, it's their home life. It has nothing to do with the child. And she sees it clear as day. So it's definitely very important that is the forefront of the conversation. Let's switch gears and talk about your book. Are you done with it? Tell me about that.
So I'm done with the manuscript.
Okay.
And it's in the publisher's hands. We're working on cover design right now. We probably are, I would say end of the year will be finished and it'll be out and available. Very excited about this. It was not something I ever imagined being part of my story because who has time to write a book?
Right.
But I did feel called to talk about leadership in a different way, especially after the pandemic in 2020. It felt like the workforce shifted.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of my conversation with colleagues who were CEOs and business owners was very much around, people don't want to work anymore. It's very difficult to get people to commit. It's very hard to get people to come back to the workplace.
Wow.
All of those conversations, which we all know. I was just, again, I met it with curiosity around why and what happened. And all I could assume was this was traumatic, this whole thing, not knowing if you're going to get a disease and die. And the misinformation, whatever you want to say, that kept coming out took all of us down really difficult paths in terms of considering, I even had conversations with my husband about, did we have a plan for one of our, if one of us passed away, and where's the will and how do we access it? And
wow,
we're young and have children and we're having this conversation. That was sort of traumatizing. That was not something we expected to have, and it changed us. And so it had to have changed all people.
I didn't even think of it like that at all.
Did anything come up for you, Collin, during COVID where you were like, I learned a lot about myself or something?
That was a weird time of life as it was anyway. So I was going through a messy divorce. But it was good. But I also my business shifted to where I was like, I got to be more versatile. So I shifted online with that too. But I don't know. I thought COVID I was like, that's a weird time period. But I was like, it's kind of cool that we went through a weird, we'll look back in history.
Sure.
That was a weird thing. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, cool. We get to do not that that's a cool thing, but
no,
to experience a monumental moment in history. I was like, this is interesting. Because the normal day to day, in my opinion, is rather monotonous and boring.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a not good change, but it was just different. We're playing a different level for a little bit.
Yeah.
Collin's like, bring on the epidemic.
I was like, do it again. No.
Do it again. No, but honestly, I totally get you. For people that do have very monotonous and just boring lives, yes, it was
and that's not what I'm saying. It's just
no, but I get it.
Like your phrase, there's anything with that, but it was so out of the norm.
Yeah.
That I was like, I was like, this is interesting. Then just watching the way people react.
Sure.
Was crazy to me.
It changed all of us.
It did.
There's no way around the fact that whether it had a silver lining for some people, it had a devastating lining for some people, it changed all of us and the way we were thinking about ourselves in relation to the community, in relation to our work. I think it made us reevaluate our purpose. And so that really is what led me to the book, to talk about what did this do to the workplace? How did it impact our mental health? How did it impact our work with purpose? And I think people started going like, okay, if this is a thing that's going to kill me, perhaps, am I doing what I was meant to do? Am I happy if I die today with what I've accomplished or what I've done or what I've set out to accomplish in the world for the purpose of bettering myself and other people, right? I think a lot of people started saying, I don't know what my purpose is. And that's where I think we got lost. And that's where I think things shifted. I would go to the grocery store, the bank, the pharmacy, you name it, a restaurant, shortly after COVID when they reopened, and people just seemed sort of lost in thought. And there was no longer this interaction like two humans. It was almost like, what am I doing here? Okay, yeah, I'm supposed to serve you or I'm supposed to help you. It just was weird. And I kept having that experience over and over and over. And I was like, something is wrong here.
Okay. Are you into AI at all?
A little bit.
Okay. You know how like there's like one line of thinking, it's like, hey, we're all like, eventually it'll take over like all work.
Right.
Do you think it was maybe because nobody, like so many people didn't have to work? We're like, this is kind of better.
Yeah.
Do you think it was that? Then we're shifted right back to it.
Yep.
Not so great. So do you think like if we do get to that, like that will be a net positive for people? Because there's like some people say, no, we're supposed to work forever. Like that's what humanity is. I'm like, I don't think so. Like,
I think it shifted what people define as work.
Yeah.
I think work was, I got to go clock in, do this thing for 8 hours, go home, and then live life. And I think people were like, wait a second. What if work was part of me living my life and enjoying my life and feeling like I'm living in my purpose? So I think AI becomes a tool that people who are, who believe that their purpose is to help people be well, right? They're going to find ways to optimize, use AI, help people do that thing, and also experience the life that they wanted to have as an individual and still make money to provide for their family, etc. I think it also, so I talked a lot about internal and external values in work. I pre-pandemic over-focused on people's external values of work. How much they get paid, how much time they have off, what's the flexibility, et cetera, right? How many days of the year, holidays, all the things. I think we had to shift, or we should have shifted if we were doing good leadership, to internal values. Does my work matter? Am I showing up every day and making a difference? If so, tell me how and why. And then I'm more engaged in this from a internal values perspective versus just let me make money so I can provide for my family and live my life outside of work. And I've never been able, people talk about work-life balance and all that. It never was for me a line between work is here and the rest of my life is here. It was always sort of blended because I was living my purpose. So if I love what I'm doing, I'm out to dinner with friends, I'm talking about this new treatment that we've discovered, plant-based medicine, that we could use to do better with addiction recovery, because I'm always thinking about this and people they know this about me and we're talking. But what I'm not doing is sitting there talking about how I'm so busy, we work so much, I'm overwhelmed, we haven't had time off, I can't, because those things now aren't depleting me. They're like work is filling me up.
Right.
So I think that's the
change in
difference.
perspective.
Yeah.
Which is the perspective of power.
Yeah. Power of perspective.
Power.
Yep.
I knew I was going to mess that up. I knew I was going to mess that up. Is the name of the book.
Yeah.
So obviously that makes sense while we're talking about it. I think we can all agree with COVID, we've lost a concept of time.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but like everything from 2019 to now has blended into 1 year. Has it?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
It feels like it was last year.
It feels like it was last year. Exactly.
It does.
So I think that that's something we could all probably mutually agree on. But I heard you say two things, is that you noticed people looked and felt lost. And it was almost like we were just like walking around and we didn't have a clue.
Yep.
But then it was almost like, but then you said, but then people started realizing their passions, their purpose, and they really started flipping that mindset and that perspective. So which one is it? Is it more, do we still really not know what we're doing? Or did it really spark and light a spark underneath a lot of people? What was the majority of COVID for you in that?
I think this is what you were getting at earlier. I think this is really what happened. If there was a silver lining, it was this. People got away from everything long enough to sit and decide, what am I doing? What do I want to do? What makes me happy? What makes me feel like I'm living a life that is the life I was supposed to live? Where do I light up and enjoy work? And where do I get really drained by work? People had time to evaluate this. And I think before, we were so busy and work was so stressful and overwhelming for a lot of people that we just didn't evaluate those more meaningful ideas. So to your point, it gave us opportunity to go, you know what, I don't think I am happy in this 9 to 5. I think I'd rather work for myself, and maybe I will create this new idea, and maybe I will listen, there's probably more entrepreneurs post-COVID than there ever have been.
Oh my gosh, I have interviewed so many people who have been like, this all was born out of COVID. A lot of, have you met entrepreneurs or business owners that were like, this was born out of COVID?
Oh yeah, I mean, I did it.
Exactly.
My training business was like, I was like, I'm leaving, working for somebody.
Exactly.
Just taking it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think that's where people decided, man, maybe I'm actually not happy in this situation, and maybe I do have the courage to go do my own thing. And I think COVID, albeit it was not a good time, and I wouldn't go back and redo it, but I think it separated us from the mundane task of everyday life long enough to look inside and do a little bit deeper discovery of who we are and what we want to do with our lives and what purpose we have.
Do you think that's why your friends who are employers are like, I can't find anyone to work with me? Because we're like, we took our life back. We're done working for you. Or like, what do you think that's really where that dissonance came from?
Yes, I think there is some of that. I think there's also the idea that employees wanted work to look different, and they got a little bit of an idea of what different could be when they were allowed to maybe work in a more flexible environment, whether that was work from home or work different hours or whatever. It's like, oh, wait a second. I'm better at this if I can do it later in the day. I'm better at this if I don't have to get up and start at 8 a.m. I actually am more productive when people aren't stopping by my office every 3 minutes asking me questions, and I can get more work done. And so I think everyone had a chance to sort of try out this idea of working in a different environment, which really lended itself to people kind of taking back ownership of, well, if you won't let me do it as an employer, I'll do it on my own.
Exactly. Yeah. A lot of self-starters, like Collin himself became.
Yep.
He's like, yes, I love that. Well, obviously, and you talk a little bit about your book in the book about like workplace cultures. Take me through that a little bit, because I think that also was a big reason people were like, I'm done. I'm done answering to somebody else. I'm here to do it on my own now. Take me through if someone really is in a position where they feel like they might be in a toxic work environment, and the advice you would give them in that.
So I think I'd probably flip it and advise a leader and not necessarily an individual trying to figure this out, because perspectives are very, very different. And I think just a side note, one of the main things that employees forget to do is understand the perspective of the organization and the leadership of the organization when they make decisions. We only look at ourselves in the situation and not the larger. So I think for leaders, it's that you look at, what am I doing? If I feel like I'm fighting a whole thing, like everybody doesn't want to work this way, or everybody doesn't want it to be this way, why am I resistant to that? And that's where I think you have to go, let me take a little perspective on the people who work for me and what their needs are and what I'm hearing. So you got to get feedback, you got to ask questions, and you got to do something about the information. And what we kept hearing in the research and the data was people felt like their mental health was ignored at work. Didn't mean they wanted us to treat their mental health at work. It just meant that they wanted us to acknowledge their mental health at work. And we at work were like, oh, we can't acknowledge that. That's like a legally tricky thing to do, right? And so I think it was for me, my advice to a leader would be create a culture where instead of, PTO, you need to have a doctor's note, all this, just take off. If you need to take off, we don't care if it's mental health related. We don't care if physical health related. PTO is just your PTO. You have the time, you take it, no explanation needed. There's simple things like that. Having sabbatical and loyalty policies where you get extra breaks for every couple of years of service, where you have a sabbatical for yourself and your wellness to go take a couple extra weeks. We actually have a policy every 5 years. You get cash and you get extra PTO by starting at 2 weeks and working its way up to 4 whole weeks extra, and cash to go. And our hope is that you pursue your wellness journey. So whether that's your physical, mental, social, spiritual health, we don't care. That's your choice. But we just think you need to work on your own wellness plan. You should be doing that all the time, but particularly paying attention at a point where you might have worked long enough you could burn out. And so we talk about burnout. We talk about avoiding burnout. We give people tips on how to avoid burnout. We talk about what self-care looks like, and that it's more than just, a massage appointment every couple of months, that there is actually a daily process of practicing self-care. We teach them that. I think it's more focus on the person and not the product that you have, the output. And that's where, as a nonprofit leader, it's easier for me, to be honest, because I have to focus on delivering good services, but I don't have to focus on running my team into the ground just to get an extra dollar at the end of the year.
Yeah.
How do you do that in a way that keeps them, like, the people you're talking to, empowered and not take that as almost like a victim mentality? Because I can see how they could easily just go, oh, my mental health type, like where that could easily get abused. Like, how do you do that? Because I feel like that is missed in today. Like I
totally get what you're saying. And I think it is looking at it from a standpoint of, and talking about it from a standpoint of resilience and getting better, and not allowing it to be something that continues to impact you in a way that you can't. So you're working toward wellness, you're working toward recovery, you're not stuck. You're not continually stuck in a situation. But the reality is, for a lot of people, access to really good care is out of reach for a lot of people. Therapy has backed up wait lists. Therapists have wait lists all over town. If you don't have the ability to self-pay, you're waiting or out of luck. And so it is understanding that, people aren't just stuck, they're trying, and really viewing people in that light and not viewing it as like, oh my gosh, it's her mental health again. Oh my gosh, it's his inability to deal with stress again. But instead saying, hey, how can we help support your plan to grow? How can we help support your plan to be resilient? And helping just make sure they have plans in place instead of just repeating the same pattern over and over.
Absolutely. I think like the use, like the word plan, like makes it almost more objective than subjective. Yeah, that's big.
Yeah, I mean, it's just if we apply the same mentality as we do for physical health, right?
It's like
we wouldn't diagnose you with something and then tell you, go home and hope it gets better.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
That's easy.
Right.
Everything happens for a reason.
Right.
And just throw that at their broken leg and see what happens.
That probably happened because you did this and this and this in your past, and now you have this disease, right? We don't do that. We create a plan. And I think the same is true for a person. And I would love to see people regain their control over their wellness in terms of their mental health, and not feel like, because there's no access to care, because there is very limited access to care, because there is no opportunity for me to pay for these. They're great therapies I've heard about, but I don't know how to get to them. I don't know how to access them, or I don't have the funds. I really would love to see a day we can eliminate that and make some of these things available to people. There's awesome opportunities, brain mapping, neurofeedback, music therapy for people who are really creative. This is really effective. There's lots of treatments out there, but in the mainstream or on insurance, those aren't covered treatments. And then there's plant-based medicine, which we talked about earlier.
Let's talk about that.
So I mean, why are we not doing that? I don't know, but I think we should.
What came out today? Let's talk a little bit about just some relevant news with the Tennessean?
Yeah. So I wrote an op-ed that went out today in the Tennessean. I don't know when this podcast will air, but on the 30th of September, there was an op-ed about a plant-based medicine called Ibogaine, Ibogaine, that I think we should be looking at in the U.S. It's a Schedule I drug. It's considered a psychedelic. It's actually not psychoactive in the same way that we know psilocybin or some people might recognize mushrooms as a way of describing this. It's very different, and it's been used in Mexico for treatment. Veterans have been a really popular group going down there to receive this treatment over the last 4 or 5 years for severe PTSD. People with addiction issues have been going down, and what they're coming back and reporting, and even through the studies that Stanford has done now on some of the veterans who went down, the brain scans before and after are showing complete neuroregenerative opportunities in the brain.
That's amazing.
Yes. And it's the most, I think, impactful opportunity I've researched in 15 years.
How do you ingest it? Is it smoke?
So, no, they're in a pill form. So
okay.
that's one way. I'm sure there are other ways, but the way I'm most familiar with in Mexico and the treatment centers is in a pill form.
And people have to go to Mexico for this, or is it? I mean, take me through. Obviously, just here in our country, the access to it.
Yeah. So because it's Schedule I, it's illegal in the U.S. So it's unregulated in Mexico. It's also available in other places like New Zealand. There's other places researching it. The most popular place for U.S. citizens to go is Mexico. There are 3 or 4 treatment centers there to choose from. It's a very short treatment, 4 days probably total time, 2 days using the medicine.
Wow.
You do some pre and post work around it. It's got a medical model around it, so you're doing work up blood level, testing the heart. There's lots of ways to make sure you're safe while you use the medicine. Ultimately, you're completely coherent during the treatment. A lot of people think this is sort of
like ayahuasca.
Like you're
like gone. Yeah. No. Okay.
It's not like that. You will have a lot of visions. A lot of people describe it as having sort of, if you had a daydream, so you but they're more visual than a daydream. There is a great movie coming out November 3rd called In Waves and War that does a really good job. It will be on Netflix. I've seen it before it's released. Really great job of explaining how the treatment works. And I really encourage if you're interested, but ultimately it does a lot of repair in the brain. Mm. And once that repair is done, people are coming back and saying, it completely changed my life. Not only that, it changed my family's life. And you have moms and children who are saying, like, my dad is a different person or my mom is a different person because of this medicine.
Is it a one-time treatment or is it something I have to do?
It is a one-time treatment.
You said 4 days and just 2 days of the treatment itself. That's it's pretty quick and fast acting. Let me ask you, obviously, I don't know if you know much about this, but obviously just the regulations in our country with them knowing the effects that it's having positively, especially on veterans. Mm-hmm. Are there any talks about this becoming legalized here?
So great question. Texas has already passed a bill.
Okay.
And they appropriated $50 million to study this drug.
We're going to Texas.
So head on down to Texas, I guess. But Arizona, Colorado, Mississippi are already having conversations. I believe Arizona already passed their law to study it in FDA clinical trials.
Okay.
I went to Mississippi's hearing. They're talking to their legislators about appropriating funds to study it. And actually, Tennessee Voices is carrying the advocacy plan around Ibogaine for Tennessee and asking legislators to consider. And we have a lot of support from lawmakers on this.
Is it similar to ketamine?
In terms of the type of drug, you could say yes, it's similar, but it works differently than ketamine in the brain. So,
yeah.
What's the pushback on it? I feel like that's like a...
Pushback is obviously anytime you legalize a drug, you have concerns of it becoming
addictive,
like a street drug, or it. But here's the thing that's different with Ibogaine: it's already been shown it's not addictive. It's not a very fun treatment, from what I've heard. I have many accounts. I've listened to people who say it was hard. It was physically very difficult. They were ill. They threw up. We had the question earlier, which that they didn't physically enjoy it, and that the visions were very difficult to see because a lot of people are processing trauma through that process, but that it was worth going through. A lot of people say, I wouldn't want to face that again. That was a lot. Think about doing therapy and unpacking loads of trauma. It's not fun. Doesn't sound fun. So, but everyone says, don't worry. This is not something that anyone is going to want to pick up over and over again. So we've had some great conversations with lawmakers and stakeholders here in Tennessee who already knew about the drug and understand that it's not addictive. We're not concerned about it becoming something that
like a recreational
gets unregulated. Yeah.
Got it. I mean, and for those who are listening, they're very interested, head over to the Tennessean to hear Rikki Harris's op-ed in that. To have an op-ed in the Tennessean is a huge accomplishment. So congratulations on that. Yeah. As we're closing out, let's talk about Tennessee Voices and you being kind of the commander in chief. What are, what would be obviously maybe some future plans, anything that you're thinking that we got to bring into Tennessee Voices? I can imagine that you are constantly evolving and thinking of new ways to battle these crises.
Yeah, we are. And to go back to the start of our conversation, we are very much having our sights set on how to work more upstream to prevent childhood trauma. So we recently merged with an organization called Nurture the Next. We're now all under the Tennessee Voices umbrella. This is a group that was already doing work with pregnant mothers and very young children to help set up a healthy environment in the home and get things off to a great start. I think we have to do more of this. And so our eyes are very much set on early childhood work and keeping this this opportunity to prevent trauma in our forefront.
Absolutely. Yeah. Collin, any last questions for Rikki? I could talk to her for hours. I don't know about you. I'm very interested in this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. Just if people wanted to find out more, like where should they go?
Yeah, TennesseeVoices.org is a great place to go. Follow us on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn, wherever people follow. We have a podcast called Candid. It's CAN plus did. So Candid. We'll be posting some stories over the next few weeks about people who have, had adverse experiences and how they've overcome those. And some of that will trail into this conversation about ibogaine. So if they're interested in learning more, I'd say check that podcast out.
Sweet.
Absolutely. Yeah. Rikki, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
All of this information is going to be found on our website, our YouTube. Please like, share, and subscribe if any of this information was helpful, or share it with someone that you know it's going to help them. On behalf of us and Spread the Positive, we will see you guys all next time on the NFM Podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.